In Hollywood in the 1990s, dreams came true. Young faces appeared on screen, promising the world a new generation of talent. Everyone was looking for their chance, and sometimes they found it. But no one told them that fame could be deadly. This story began like a fairy tale and ended in a way that changed the industry forever. The story of Rebecca Schaeffer, an actress who dreamed only of acting. But one day, the man who dreamed of her rang her doorbell. Rebecca Lucille Schaeffer was born on November 6, 1967, in Portland, Oregon, into a family that valued education and creativity. Her mother, Dana, taught creative writing, and her father, Ben, was a psychologist. Her parents strove to raise their children to be responsible and attentive to the world. Rebecca was a quiet and observant girl who loved writing stories and drawing from an early age. She participated in school plays, sang in the choir, performed in community theaters, and dreamed of a career as an actress. Family and friends noted her kindness, hard work, and ability to get along with people. After graduating from high school, Rebecca moved to New York to work as a model and try her hand at acting. Initially, these included commercials, photo shoots for local magazines, and small roles. Her natural demeanor and expressive facial expressions quickly caught the attention of casting directors. In 1986, she landed the role of Sam on the series My Sister, Sam. From the very first episode, her character became a fan favorite. Young, kind, and witty, Sam brought life to the screen. From that moment on, fan letters began pouring in daily, ranging from simple thank yous to persistent requests for meetings. Rebecca always tried to answer letters, even if it took hours, because she believed respect for her fans was important. Among the thousands of fans, there was one man, Robert John Bardo, whose letters were distinguished by their obsession and emotional intensity. At the time, this was perceived as simply a manifestation of fan devotion, but it would later become a harbinger of tragedy. After the series closed, Rebecca moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in film. A new stage awaited her, filming movies, participating in television projects, photo shoots, and interviews. She attended auditions, spoke with directors, studied scripts, and tried to choose roles that would showcase her talent. Her name became increasingly recognizable, and directors began to see her as a future star. In early 1989, she received an invitation to audition for Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather Part 3, which could have been a turning point in her career. At the time, Robert Bardo was living in Arizona. His childhood had been difficult. Psychological difficulties, loneliness, isolation, and lack of understanding from his peers made him vulnerable. When he first saw Rebecca on screen, she became a symbol of the light and ideal he had been missing in his life. He collected everything he could find: letters, photographs, journals, interview tapes. In his eyes, Rebecca was no longer just an actress. She became part of his inner world, an object of obsession over which he wanted to control every aspect of her life. At first, he wrote letters, expecting a reply. When Rebecca responded briefly and politely, he took it as confirmation of a personal connection. Any distance felt like betrayal, and his infatuation became a danger. Her every action, her every step, was recorded in his diary and plans. Bardot began following Rebecca in person. He visited filming locations, attempted to infiltrate studios, and observed her route and daily habits. He noted the time she left home, the shops and cafes she frequented, and the people she interacted with. For him, Rebecca ceased to be a person. She became an object of control, the center of his world. He rented a cheap motel in Los Angeles and spent his nights there, planning every move. He bought a gun and kept photographs, letters, and gifts. He turned her every action into a signal, planning the precise moment of their meeting. He studied her neighbors, her travel schedule, and explored ways to avoid detection. Everything he did seemed necessary and logical within the framework of his obsession. Bardot saw himself as the defender of the ideal he had created in his mind. Her every action, every word, was interpreted as a personal message demanding a response. His preparation for the final step was systematic. He calculated the details, checked the routes, and monitored safety. Robert Bardot continued to write letters to Rebecca, sometimes sending them through postal agencies and friends who helped him bypass the usual barriers. He carefully chose every word, as if he were writing not just to an admirer, but to someone with whom he felt a special connection. He sent photographs, souvenirs, and books with notes and marginalia, expressing his thoughts, which were sometimes extremely complex, at times a mixture of admiration, self-pity, and demands he considered justified. Rebecca, raised with politeness and respect for others, responded briefly, trying not to offend but also not to engage in intrusive correspondence. She described her shoots, talked about her work, and shared common moments without engaging in emotional games. To the average person, her responses seemed polite and ordinary, but to Bardot, they were proof of a connection, confirming his illusory closeness to the actress. He interpreted her every gesture, every phrase in the letter, as a personal promise or a reaction to his actions. Bardot gradually began planning the meeting, devising ways to bypass security, avoid witnesses, and infiltrate her entourage. His letters became increasingly intrusive, sometimes almost demanding, sometimes threatening, though at first glance they remained polite. He studied the reactions of Rebecca and her friends, trying to figure out who might have reported his actions or noticed his presence near the actress. At the same time, Rebecca's friends and colleagues noticed letters and gifts from fans. Some laughed at the strange persistence of the fans, while others advised the actress to be careful. She shared details of the correspondence with her loved ones, sometimes showing the letters to her agent or assistant. But no one could have imagined that one of her admirers would turn into a deadly threat. Rebecca remained kind and polite, continuing her normal life, going to film sets, working with colleagues, unaware that her every action was being recorded, analyzed, and becoming part of the killer's plan. July 18, 1989, began like a typical summer day for Rebecca. She woke up early, checked the script for an upcoming casting call for Francis Ford Coppola's film, and practiced her lines, trying to capture the nuances of her character. Every morning, she spent time warming up and doing light exercises to stay in shape for filming and advertising projects. She had breakfast with her mother over the phone, discussing plans for the day and seeking advice on how to best prepare for new roles. Her thoughts were completely focused on work, how to present herself, how to showcase her talent, to secure the opportunity she dreamed of. At the same time, Robert Bardot awoke with one goal: to get closer to Rebecca. His day began with checking the route to her house, observing the neighbors, calculating the time when the entrance would be empty and someone would not notice his movements. He prepared meticulously, armed with a pistol, photographs, and letters that he considered a connection between them. For him, it all seemed like logic, carefully thought out over months. He calculated Rebecca's every move in advance. When she would leave the house, how she would react to a stranger, what words she would utter. He perceived his steps as the fulfillment of destiny, considering himself the controller of her life. Rebecca checked her email, called her agent, and discussed the details of the casting and meeting with the director. She had planned a short trip, but on her way back, she noticed someone outside the house. She didn't think anything of it. Admirers sometimes drop by to leave letters or gifts. When the doorbell rang, she opened it with a welcoming smile. Bardot stood before her, carefully holding a package containing a gift and photographs. He identified himself as a fan. She, as always, was polite and curtly replied that she was busy, thanked him for his attention, and closed the door. But Bardot didn't leave. After a while, he returned, this time with a gun. He approached the door with a determination that could only be explained by years of pent-up obsession. Rebecca opened the door a second time and said, "You again?" The last words that left her lips. He fired straight into her chest. She recoiled, whispered, "Why?" and collapsed on the threshold of her home. It all happened in an instant. Bardot turned and left, leaving horror and silence in his wake. Neighbors soon noticed what was happening. Some saw him leaving, some heard a strange noise, some thought it was just an object falling. But no one could change what had happened. Paramedics arrived quickly, but her life was cut short. Her heart stopped beating, and the world lost a young actress full of hopes, plans, and dreams. Bardot quietly left the city and hid for 2 days. He was detained, and during interrogation, he described in detail his preparations, surveillance, letters, and the stages of his actions. His stories included days of surveillance, observation of Rebecca's friends, and analysis of her routes and habits. All the evidence found in his house, letters, photographs, notes, showed that the murder had been meticulously planned. His obsession reached its climax, turning months of preparation into the tragic end of the young actress's life. This chapter of the story is the culmination of a tragedy. It reveals not only the cruelty of man, but also the fragility of life, when one person's ordinary day can be another's last. Rebecca Schaeffer left behind a memory that reminds us that every smile on screen represents a living person with feelings, fears, and dreams. Bardo's trial began several months later. His lawyers attempted to prove his mental instability, but the court found him completely sane. In 1991, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Heard it up, and she was just screaming. She was going, why? Why? She's screaming. She's just straight screaming. I was going, why?
Rebecca's death sparked a wave of discussions in Hollywood and beyond. The case demonstrated that fan obsession can escalate into violence. Following the tragedy, California passed new laws protecting celebrity privacy and tightened security measures for actors and studios. Her death served as a lesson for the entire industry. The threat lurking behind fan devotion cannot be underestimated. Rebecca Schaeffer's story is a reminder of how dangerous the line between admiration and obsession can be. She dreamed of roles and recognition, but her life ended on the doorstep of her own home. She could have become a great actress, but she became a symbol of vulnerability and tragedy. Her name is forever etched in the history of cinema and law. If you watch this story to the end, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new documentaries. And remember, behind every smile on screen is a living person, and behind every dream, a fragile destiny.